All right, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you are all keeping well. I pray that you're having a restful Sabbath. We continue with our look into the I Ams of John, and I want to look at that statement, beautiful statement of hope that he gives us concerning the resurrection, where he says, I am the resurrection and the life. We'll get to that context with Lazarus, and there's just a lot of beauty in how it leads up to that point. Now, it's very much a theological issue within Israel of the first century. Some of you may not know, there's the Sadducees, that sect, and as people often say, they were sad, you see, because they didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead. That's a good dad joke to throw out every now and then. But they had this interpretation method where you couldn't speak on something from make up a new doctrine that came from the writings and the prophets without having at least the basis of a root within the law. And that's where Yeshua's answer to them, where they try to trick him out with this question about the resurrection, was absolutely so amazing. And they were also very much scripturalists, and so he taught, he speaks within their tradition and doesn't actually knock it. But you might remember his response, Matthew 22, as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken unto you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he's drawing on a passage from Exodus, from the Torah, and then gives the conclusion that they should have had from that statement from the one in the bush, who is actually talking to them right now, the Son of God with them, the Malach Elohim. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And there really are some wonderful passages in the prophets that pointed to the resurrection that should have spurred them to really see the hope of resurrection lies in the one that was at the burning bush, and they should have made the connection. Okay, the first one, I read this a lot, but Job 19, beautiful passage about the Redeemer that would stand in the latter days upon the earth. Ancient Israel knew the Son of God. Modern Judaism has nothing to do with him, but they knew this one, and they knew he had the power of the resurrection, as is seen in that passage there. We also have Daniel chapter 12. This would have been a massive passage as well, giving this hope. Here we see this one who is often translated as Michael, but I encourage you to rather see it more like Emmanuel. This one can be called Emmanuel, but that's not really his name. It's more a title meaning God with us. So Michael means who is like God, and Israel would have known exactly this character. And at that time shall who is like Elohim stand up, the Gadol Sar, the chief prince or the chief captain. It's the same word used with Joshua when he fell down before him as the captain of the host. That's Sar. There's another place also, with Isaiah 9:6, and his name shall be called. One of those we see is the Prince of Peace. That is also Sar. So there's this great Sar. He stands for the children of your people. We'll see this in terms of the one who defends the elect of God. It's going to become an important theme. That yes, the elect of God fail in many ways, but this one is slow in accusation, unlike another. And so there's this description here of he will stand, as with Job would say, in the latter days, and then it leads to this wonderful hope that we have of, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And so this really is the idea of it's not just there's this ultimate resurrection from death, from sleep, where the dust where even it's not even bones at this point. Dust will come to life again. I want to talk about another passage that I think we lose sight of in terms of this one who stands for his people and is slow in accusation. Comes from Jude. Here we see this one, Michael, who is like Elohim, the head of messengers. It speaks here when contending with the devil, with the accuser of the brethren. He disputed about the body of Moses. He durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." And we get this from, again, we've got to think more in the Sadducee way. You can't just see this as a new thing. What's this thing about the body of Moses? But rather see, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians, we were baptized into Moses. We see the children of Israel are likened to the people of Moses, Moses' people that were brought out of Egypt. And really we connect this whole thing of the accuser of the brethren and this one who rebukes them to Zechariah chapter 3. And he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the Malach Yehovah. So this is before the Son of God. And Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. And Yehovah said unto Satan, this accuser of the brethren, Yehovah rebuke you. O Satan, even Yehovah that has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? So this Joshua the high priest, he's representing Israel, he's representing the city of Jerusalem. And then he's described as, now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the Malach. And so he's not considered clean. This is the sins of many of the people. But we see the mercy here, even towards him as he comes in intercession. And he answered and spoke unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused your iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with change of raiment. So he gets new clothes, and we have this wonderful picture of this one who rebukes, who stands for the people, who stands on behalf of whom God has anointed, and opposes the adversary through time. Okay, and this is important because it's also part of the resurrection motif that he will stand in that day. Have I got the scripture? Yeah. His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. He's going to do battle. But it's also this idea of he gets off the throne and he stands for the righteousness of Jerusalem and what he has chosen, Israel, his people, what is elect to him. All of that comes to the fore, and he stands in judgment as one righteous in that day. And so we can also relate this to the resurrection through 1 Thessalonians. The Lord himself shall descend from heaven. We've got all these motifs about him standing in that day with a shout, with the voice, and this is going to become important with getting back to the Gospels, with the voice of the head messenger, of this chief angel, first saying messenger, and with the trump of God, and the dead and Messiah shall arise first. So in Yeshua's ministry, just be aware that through doing resuscitation, okay, bringing people from death to life, but not getting glorified bodies, there is this constant theme of him trying to impress that he is the one who ultimately is going to cause the dust to come alive in those glorious bodies of the resurrection. So you might know this with Jairus, I think that's how you say it, his daughter. He goes into the room and he says, "Why are you weeping? She's asleep." And they may have thought this as, that's not very funny. We understand the resurrection. But, that all shifts when he then says, "Show me the girl." Goes to her, and then with his voice, he says, "Talita Kumi," and I think that means, "Young woman, arise," and she comes to life. We have these incidents that with the voice, this one's voice, death is annulled. And another place of this is in, it's a famous one from Matthew. And I don't think this is necessarily the ultimate resurrection. I think this could also be mass resuscitations. That's the view I have. But we know there as well that the graves were opened and many bodies of holy ones which slept arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection. They went into the holy city and appeared unto many. I think this would have been perhaps resuscitation. They continue to live and say, as a witness to something happened at that time. I know some people see them as the first fruits. What we do know is Messiah is definitely what is written, is that Messiah has risen from the dead, become a first fruits. So there was nothing like this, and so I would, I think we must definitely connect him with the first fruits of that great resurrection of the dead. Now we can look at the most important one, from where we get that statement, "I'm the resurrection of the dead." And that really comes from what happened with Lazarus. And it was such a massive incident in Israel. So let's look at that. "These things said he, and after that he said unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him out of his sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleeps, he shall do well. Howbeit Yeshua spoke of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest in sleep. Then Yeshua said unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent that you may believe." Now this is really deep, because what's he getting at here is, I want you to believe I am the resurrection and the life. I'm the one with the voice that can raise the dead. Everything's always in a bit of a parable. "Nevertheless, let us go unto him." And so we know he goes unto him. I believe John experienced certain things with other disciples away. Anyway, Yeshua's first at the graveyard with Martha, and we read this. This here. "Then said Martha unto Yeshua, Lord," and I think he arrived there just so it's going to make sense. He says, I want Mary here as well. Where is she? But he's dead. So that's also, you get that kind of idea behind this. "Then said Martha unto Yeshua, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother had not died. He wouldn't have died. But I know that even now, whatsoever you will ask of God, God will give it to you." So I really think Martha is suggesting, I believe you can raise the dead. And Yeshua picks up on this. And again, we get this interplay between ultimate resurrection and resuscitation. Yeshua says unto you, your brother shall rise again. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. He's with the glorious body. Yeshua said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believe thou this. Do you believe this? Now, in what he's suggesting, every good Jew of that time would know that he is equating himself with the Son of God character, the one who is the image of the invisible God, the one who is the theophany, cloud presence, Shekinah person, the messenger of his presence. He's claiming to be that one with the voice that will resurrect the dead. And he's asked her this. Her response, here we often we often talk too much about Peter. I think it's because of Rome, but her response here is amazing. She said unto him, Yes, Lord, yes, Master, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. And I believe there's this moment where, where he's, well, I'm here, and I've asked for people to be here. And so we read, and when she had so said, she went away and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, The Master's come and calls for you. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Yeshua was not yet come into the town, but he was at that place where Martha met him. Then the Jews, which were with her in the house, so with Mary, and comforted when they saw that Mary rose and up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, She goes unto the grave to weep there. Then, when Mary was come where Yeshua was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother had not died. So she's seeing him as the one who prevents death, rather than seeing him as Martha saw him and knew him and requested and said, I know that if you request anything of your Father, you can receive that. And this is going to play into what we read of, where it says, and when Yeshua therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, so she's not asking the right question, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Yeshua wept. I don't think this is because of his love for Lazarus. They're trying to put this in context. So they say, then the Jews said, Behold how he loved him. But that's not what it's about. It is about, do you not know who I am? Do you still not know, recognize me? I think this is what was troubling at that time. And we see yet another statement where they don't know who's in their midst. And it says, and some of them said, Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? Couldn't he have healed him from his sickness so that he wouldn't die? And they don't realize who this one is. And so we know Yeshua, he rolls up his sleeves and he shows them exactly who he is. And he says with his voice, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus comes out. Now there's more to this, because this is problematic for the religious sects of the Jews, because, for the Pharisees had made a law that the body starts decomposing on day 4, and we know he waited till day 4 to do this. And they said that in the Talmud, we read, the Rav said, if a body dies and his body decomposes, so gets to day 4, he can no longer be resurrected unless by the hand of God. This is why it was so significant that Yeshua be raised on the 3rd day. And they would quote David's psalm saying, God would not suffer his Holy One to suffer corruption. So this was blatantly in their face, because Lazarus was, as the King James says, he stinketh. Now, he had got to the point of decomposition, and this stood in the way of the Pharisees. They would have to confess that this was done by the hand of God, and Yeshua did this in his own authority. The other issue, this comes to play in John chapter 12 as they're coming into Jerusalem. The Jews that were there saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, They were told, they were receiving the reports of this one from all those Jews that were there when he raised Lazarus. They said, with our eyes, we saw this. This is what happened. And here's another really interesting statement, that another yeast. We know the yeast of the Pharisees very well, but this got in the way of the yeast of God resuscitating concerning the Sadducees. And we read there that the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death. He became a symbol that undermined their theology, rather than going to the one who raised him from the dead and inquiring of him. Of his ways and trying to understand, humbling themselves. So, just to wrap this up, we live in a day where I think there are many things that we see resurrection of sorts. We see the resurrection of the Jewish nation. And I want to thread this with, I don't want to be on the side of those who are quick to accuse, join the accuser of the brethren, those who see the Jews as too dirty, too unclean, too not worthy. But anyone who humbles themselves, this one will restore and revive according to his good pleasure. The same with Jerusalem. I know in the book of Revelation it's described as Sodom and Gomorrah, but we see a resurrection and we see the stones coming alive, and we have to be careful. Same with the doctrine of the two houses. There's a resurrection and an understanding of Messiah as one who unites the two houses of Israel. And there are people out there who want to kill the doctrine, and they don't realize that they're kicking against the goads like a Paul. They don't realize it's actually him that they are persecuting and killing. All right. But let's get to the great promise that we all hope for, that resurrection of the dead, to once again tie it to the Messiah, who is by mystery one with the Father, as is said in John 5. Here he says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that hears my voice and believes on him that sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. For as the Father has given life in himself, so has he given to the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment also. He can stand in judgment, because he is the Son of Man. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming, in which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, connecting themselves to he who is as Elohim, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. So in closing, I just want to say that, we often talk about be a Mary and not a Martha. It's interesting getting into this little passage here to realize actually there's another time where may we all be like Martha and not Mary. May we testify that we know who he is. We know that he has the voice that will awaken the dead, that we can say of him, he is the resurrection and the life. Many blessings to you. I hope you have a blessed Sabbath and a wonderful week ahead. Shalom.